Paul, everyone's in the meeting now.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to this meeting of the Waverley Local Planning Panel for the 2nd of November 22, and start by introducing the members of today's panel. My name is Paul Steen, I'm the chair. The other members are Ms. Jan Morell and Mr. Stuart MacDonald, expert members, and Ms. Sandra Robinson, community member. Can I call upon the members of the panel to disclose any conflicts of interest they have in relation to today's agenda? I have none.
I have none.
I have none, thanks, Chair.
I have a conflict in relation to the first item, 7 Thompson Street, as I was the consultant town planner.
Okay. Will you absent yourself from that matter then?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. MacDonald, you said you had no conflict.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, thanks for clarifying that. I was speaking in relation to item 1, I beg your pardon.
No, I'm sorry, I was taking any item on the agenda.
Yeah, no, that's my misunderstanding, I beg your pardon. I have a conflict in relation to item 3, 66 Fletcher Street, Bondi, where I am a friend of the architect for the project, so I will absent myself from consideration of that matter.
All right. Well, thank you for that. There are no further conflicts of interest to note. So we'll start on the agenda, and in relation to 7 Thompson Street, Sandra Robinson will absent herself from the panel. And we'll call you back when the number 2 matter is coming on. The first speaker that I have today is Mr. Hennessy.
Fennessy, Mr. Chairman.
I beg your pardon. My eyesight, even with glasses.
That's okay. It happens all the time.
I beg your pardon. Mr. Fennessy from number 9 Thompson Street.
That's correct.
Yes. Please go ahead with your submission. You have.
Okay. Look, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to all members for allowing us to speak with you today. My wife, Emma, joins me. We've both been at number 9 Thompson for 10 years. So we're very familiar with the street and our neighbours on both sides. So look, we're objecting to bringing the garage forward closer to the street on the proposed development, because we really need to keep an adequate distance between our properties. There's a natural and seasonal underground stream that flows between our properties. And this originates from the top of our properties in a shared front garden bed and flows non-stop year-round through to the rear of our property into the gully. All the homes on the lower side have a lot of water, and we bear the brunt of that. We have a stream that runs continuously 365 days a year between the properties. It's like the 8th wonder of the world. Come and see it. We even recently had a ranger knock on our door and ask us where all the water was coming from. We discovered this stream shortly after we purchased our home in 2011, and we spent a lot of time and money protecting the lower levels of our home from water damage. And our neighbours at number 7 are very much aware of the history of this. We've had plumbers and Sydney Water out many times to investigate the water, because all of our plumbing pipes and water meter services are buried in the shared garden bed between number 7 and 9. And they have confirmed, those plumbers and Sydney Water, that it's a natural groundwater. Now, there's currently no drainage in this area. Okay, so we were cautioned by Sydney Water to avoid unnecessary cutting into this garden bed to not disrupt the existing flow. Now, our neighbouring properties in the street recently made a collective decision for private underground cabling, and we declined that offer based on the advice of Sydney Water, who cautioned us against disturbing the existing water course in the existing, in this undrained area. So we have habitable rooms at street level and below street level. Our neighbours planted bamboo along the fence line, and we've had ingress from the roots and had to ask them to remove the bamboo shoots, which they were happy to do. We have a really good working relationship with our neighbours at number 7, but they've been overseas now for 7 years and are coming back soon. We look after our home. We're proud of it, like everyone else is in this area. We re-render and waterproof regularly because aggressive elements need airspace to abseil down the side of our home. We really need to maintain the airspace to prevent future water ingress into our rooms, and that's really the crux of it. You know, it's quite an extraordinary thing, the stream that runs underground, and it flows right underneath us. It's like a river. You can come and see it flowing out the back of our property into the gully. We just need to maintain a suitable amount of space between the two in order for that drainage to continue to occur. That's all it really is. You know, that's the only major issue that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Fennessy. Any questions of Mr. Fennessy from the members of the panel?
Just thank you, Chair. One question. So what are you talking about in terms of them bringing it forward to the boundary? What are you actually asking for? I'm just trying to understand.
It's my, sorry to interrupt. It's my understanding they've proposed to move the garage forward. At the moment, step back a little bit, as is our garage, and they want to bring it forward and widen the garage to bring it to the boundary. So at the moment, there is a shed garden bed. There is all the plumbing and fittings and their drip irrigation. And honestly, we don't actually know where ours flows, but it ends up in that front garden bed, and they want to take it right to the boundary. There were issues before because this is their second renovation, and we're aware that there were issues the first time, I think back in 2007 or 11, when they looked at widening it. Something to do with the slab. I'm not aware of it. They're aware of, their architect is aware of.
Interrupt and ask a question, a simple question.
Sure.
What do you want us to do?
We want to maintain the airspace. We don't want the garage widened.
You want the garage moved closer to the street?
We don't want the garage widened. We want to maintain the setback. If they bring it forward, they are going to extend the width of the garage to the end of the property boundary. And so if, let's say there's 0.5 metre, we want to maintain the 0.5 metre. We don't want there to be a matter of millimetres, centimetres between properties.
So they're going to expand their garage so it's hard up against the borderline between the two.
Against our house.
Hard up against our house, basically. And we want that gap. We want that space for basically for the drainage and for the water to naturally flow. And that's really all it is.
Okay.
You know, we everything else we're fine with, really, aren't we? They're nice people. We get on really well with them. So it's really, they're very familiar with the water issues that we've had. We should make the point that our property, we moved in early 2012. It was built in 2008, and it wasn't built by us. So we're the second owners, not the original one. So the garden bed the shared garden bed, we inherited it. And there is a lot of, it's not properly waterproofed underneath. There is drip irrigation, there is plumbing, there is water meters, all in that shared garden bed. So if they widen the garage, it's going to go right across that garden bed and jam up against our property, which is, in theory, it's okay, but it's about the gap to maintain that drainage.
We understand now the issue that you're raising.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Fennison. Now, so the next speaker is Luigi Rosselli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm the architect for the applicants.
Yes.
And in relation to this objection for number 9, I must point out the drawing DA10 into our submission, the DA drawings, which show a good section through the garage.
Would you like to share that with us, Luigi?
Yes, it might take just half a minute, but while he's looking for it, I would start explaining that the section shows very clearly that the slab on ground is going to be slightly higher than the existing slab. Okay, so if you can pass. So the slab on ground is slightly higher than the existing slab of the garage. So there is all possibility to allow any water flow, which is my understanding subterranean, to flow underneath the garage. That can be done by piering the slab and not making continuous footings. So I think the issue is not really the position of a garage, but the type of footings which could cause some dam and concentrate waters in other area. So if panel wants to put a condition, I think it would be just into having the footing design that is allowing free water flow underneath the slab. Now, in relation to the rest, I must thank the council for their approval proposal from the planning department. We only have one point that we would like to raise. In the process, we received at early stage a letter from the council which said that we had to do all sorts of things, which we did. Among those, to flatten the solar panel on the roof to avoid any view losses for number 5. Now, in the report, there is an image of view losses for number 5. So this is a photo taken from the balcony at our standing position, and the panels were located behind that parapet, where you see the hand. And if we go back to the section, we obeyed to the instruction to flatten the panels, and then on an inspection I did yesterday to come ready for the meeting, I noticed that those panels being flattened, not only they're not efficient, but they won't be visible at all if they were sloping like the one of the garage. And it is important that the council not frustrates the good initiative of putting solar panels that our client says, and the efficiency of a flat panel versus a sloping one is about 20 to 30% loss, which is considerable, in the current circumstance we find ourselves. Also, they get dusty, they get dirty, they become much more inefficient with time. So I was wondering if it was possible to condition that the solar panel being positioned with a slope which doesn't reach any higher than an RL of 47, which is indicated which is the parapet RL. And then that allows to put a panel back with a slope. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, I think Ms. Morell has a matter she wishes to raise with you on behalf of the panel.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just follow through with the issue of the setback of the garage? And is there any opportunity to provide a setback, not probably to the same extent as what you have today, but if there's an opportunity to provide some form of a setback?
Well, the client went through the trouble of demolishing and rebuilding a garage, which was built in 2008, because the the width of a garage was not sufficient to position their 2 cars. It's got a width of 6.3 meters, and they, you know, like everybody's got surfboards and bicycles to store. So if we go back to the original setback, it would be, but also by moving it forward to increase the landscape area inside the property, and align with the neighbors of 9 Thompson, it does also restrict further the width. So, in a nutshell, I think it will be a substandard garage if we do go back to the original setbacks.
Well, if I ask the question in respect of the side boundary setback, not necessarily the from the street, but is there a possibility of setting back, say, 0.5 metre off the side boundary? And then when I'm looking at the plan here that we have shared, it would just bring the garage across. Is there any possibility of that?
But yeah, what I was saying before is that if we move it forward, then there is an existing entry portico, which restrict the width. And so we have to gain back a little bit of space.
But what I'm saying is, can you not bring that further to the north-south, to the west?
Yes.
So that you've closed it, so that you move the whole thing across
To the east.
Yeah, so that you've got say 0.5 metre setback from the adjoining property.
Everything is possible, but it will be smaller than the original garage. And then the other thing, it would be also not solving the problem of the water. The water is going under the slab, and is it very, very possible to let the water continue under the slab without blocking it by not going with continuous footings underneath the slab down to rock. So if the slab is put on piers, the water would flow freely without having a kind of a useless little 500 mil area, which is not serviceable, and it will be basically no man's land.
Can I just ask you, have you had a hydraulic engineer look at it to sort of resolve the issue of the underground water?
We have an hydraulic engineer who did a plan and submissions, certainly. They didn't notice any major issues on that side, but it is resolvable without a planning change. That's what I'm saying. It is resolvable by doing the correct type of footings.
Mr. Chairman.
So in terms of the drainage, have you approached Sydney Water in terms of, it clearly seems to be something that's quite visible, the drainage issue, and have you approached Sydney Water as to whether this is acceptable to them?
No, not really, because it's not very visible, not visible at all into our property. That we walked, I went personally into that space between the 2 garages. It is full of vegetation, but there is no sign of water and erosion or flow water. The water must be underground, and it's not visible. So it's not, and I don't recollect to be this into an objection before, was it? No. So this came out only today.
Let's say
It doesn't matter when it's come out. We're talking about it now, Mr. Rosselli.
Mr. Chairman, can we?
No, I'm not. I can't hear you now. We've heard you.
Okay.
And the way that we conduct the meetings, if we hear one side and then the other side. Thank you.
Okay. Can't say anything.
Ms. Morell, you were in the middle of asking Mr. Rosselli some questions.
Yes, I'm just going to the basement plan. the lower ground floor plan, and I'm just looking at the area. I presume it's currently not there, the bulk storage garden equipment area, which on the plan that I have in front of me is DA03, but I believe on another sheet there is, it's labelled as a gym area. And I'm just questioning as to why that wasn't included in the calculation of FSR.
This is fully underground storage area, and so therefore it complies fully with the definition of underground storage area.
But if it's shown as a gym, I believe, or a something else on sheet 20.
No, not that I know, but let's have a look. This DS20, that's not in a submission. We got day 18.
Okay, right, yeah, I'm just sorry, I'll just correct the number then. And I suppose the issue is it necessary to do that excavation for a garden storage?
Well, that was the brief of the client, and that I didn't query it too much. But
I mean, there's some concern that the lower ground floor could be used as a separate dwelling, and no doubt you've read those concerns. And when you look at the size of the master bedroom robe, and then when you move to the level above, there's nearly an equivalent bedroom too, which is the same, and the separate bar, and the size of the bulk storage, whether it be used as a media room or something else. It just seems that perhaps, I'm not saying it should have been, but what would be that area if it was included in the FSR?
well, that area cannot be habitable because it's underground, and there is a small window, WO1, which is, if you walk around the building, is just about a meter high, and it wouldn't be sufficient to make it an habitable area. So it is definitely not an habitable area.
Okay, so where do you get access to the bulk to the garden storage area if there's no access from the garden itself?
Well, you just go through the hallway, and there is a door, and or you can go out to the laundry. We didn't want to change the laundry position and laundry joinery, so that's how, it's not a big deal.
I just noticed that it's already 29% over the FSR.
But
without the inclusion of that.
May I respond to that, or you think do I need to answer to that?
Well, you do, because if there was a modification to the plan, then you might take the wall out between the laundry and this storage area. I'm just trying to understand why we have such a large area that's going to be excavated, as opposed and not included in FSR.
All right. So the relationship to the FSR has been quite well explained into the clause 4.6 put by the planners. It stipulates that only 5% of exceedance is visible from the street, and the rest is mostly below the ground if when viewed from Waverley Street or from Thompson Street. The building happens to be Waverley Street has been built up, and building happens to be in Tuna Hollow, which is greatly below Waverley Street. So the new additions, which are shown in green in these plans, are basically below the street or the street fence. They're not visible.
Mr. Rosselli, we're not really asking you to defend the clause 4.6. What we're trying to ascertain is whether this area, the underground storage / gym, is included in the FSR or not.
It's partially included into the drawing DA12. So DA12 shows that a triangle of it, where the definition of 1 meter below ground is being excluded and included into the FSR, and the rest being below the 1 meter above the ground is excluded, and the floor above. And therefore, and this is, you know, I don't call it a gym. You might call it a gym, but this is bulk storage garden equipment store, and so it strictly it adheres to the definition.
So is the answer that it's partially included in the calculation?
Where the height of the ground and at the outside of the property outside is higher, sorry, is lower. Therefore, we don't comply with the meter. We put a line, and that's basically in
that triangle.
That triangle there, yes.
Okay, I understand now. I'm sorry, Ms. Morel.
No, not at all. Thank you, Chair. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosselli. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website as soon as may be possible. I thank all speakers. And we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is in Bronte Road. And Anthony Betros, is he present?
I am, thank you, panel.
Now you're the town planner on behalf of the applicant.
I am.
Yes, please go ahead.
I note the recommendation for approval, and the applicant is happy with the conditions in the report. I'm really just to answer any questions or queries if the panel is necessary.
Thank you. Is Miss Robinson back with us?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry. Any questions from the members of the panel to Mr. Betros?
No, thank you.
I have none.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Betros. Thank you for coming along and being prepared to answer questions. So we'll, at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll consider this application.
Excuse me, sorry, we've signed up for the meeting. I'm next door at number 100 Bronte Road. And this building will be greatly affecting my sunlight because it's already very dark in this unit.
Sorry, what is your name? I didn't have you on my list of speakers.
Mary.
Mary who?
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. Do you have a surname?
Silver.
Thank you, Mary Silver. And what is your address?
Unit number 4,
Yeah.
100 Bronte Road.
Paul and Mary, I think this is actually a different application.
Oh,
Mary.
my apologies. Sorry, I thought it was just finished, so I just wanted to butt in. My apologies.
Well, which matter are you concerned with? We've got another one at 104 to 106 Bronte Road.
That's it. That's the one.
Oh,
My
well,
apologies. I just thought it was finished.
That's not the one we're dealing with now.
My apologies.
That's all right. Well, I'll add your name to the objectors it's number 8 in the list. So Mary Jane Silver. Thank you. We'll come back to that later. We haven't.
My sincere apologies. I did not mean to interrupt.
Don't worry. Okay, so we come to 66 Fletcher Street, Tamarama. And I think Mr. McDonald is going to leave the room for the moment. Stay close by, please. And is Lee Cosnetta present?
Morning. Afternoon, Chair. Yes, I am.
Good afternoon. And you're the planner on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, thank you. I'll take a leaf from Mr. Betros's book and be quite brief. I'm here as well to take any questions of the panel. We're supportive of the recommendations from council's planners who've recommended approval. Jonathan Richards, the architect, is also in the meeting, available if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the members of the panel for Mr. Cosnetta? I have.
No, thank you.
Jan, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Cosnetta, for your attendance. And I think, judging from those answers from the members of the panel, we won't need to trouble Mr. Richards, but thank you for making him available. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. That brings us to the next item, which is 74 Victoria Street, Waverley. And there's Darren Naftal, an architect. Is he present?
Yes, I am.
And are you the architect for the applicant from MCK?
Yeah, that's correct. We're happy with everything that the report is going to answer any questions if there's anything from the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Naftal. Are there any questions from the members of the panel? I have Mr. McDonald is back with us now.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. No, I have no questions. Thank you.
What about the other members of the panel? Do we have any questions for Mr. Raftel?
No.
Not from me, thank you. No.
Well, thank you very much for your attendance. It's appreciated. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. So the next item is 3 Military Road, North Bondi. There are no speakers registered to speak. So in that circumstance, we'll consider the application later and notify our decision on the council website. Then the next item is 103 Dover Road, Rose Bay. There are a number of speakers. The first one I have is Adriana Turner. Is she present? Adriana Turner?
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, thank you. And can you give me your address, please? Is it 105? No.
Sorry, yes, I'm here. 105.
105?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Hello, my name is Adriana. I live in this house for almost 18 years. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening and taking to consider our concerns. To add to my submissions, I just want to focus on the front setback. The front setback is also breached because whilst the building is within the front setback line, the balcony protrudes into the front setback. And because the balcony is roofed and screened by full height blades, it contributes to the loss of view in the same way that a solid structure would and should therefore be located behind the front alignment. There is no need for this form to be so intrusive, as demonstrated in the sketches provided in my submission. I think my architect is here to answer any questions, but I'm not sure if she just made on time. But I don't have anything extra to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adriana. Are there any questions from the members of the panel?
No,
I
thank
think you.
No, thanks.
And do we need to hear from Ms. Turner's architect, Joanna Lucas-Weicker? She's not
No.
here at the moment. Okay. And then the next speaker then is Morris Beraldo.
Yes, speaking. Thank you.
Beraldo, you're an architect for the applicant?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes.
And I have my client. I have my client sitting next to me.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and panel members. We would just like to address the items raised in council's reasons for refusal. What we'd probably like to start with is in response to Adriana's concern regarding the sun shading to the balcony. What we'd like to share, if possible, is the original council approval for the property. And I hope the panel can see that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, in the original approval, there's actually a requirement for sun shading and obscure glass to the areas in question. That they currently haven't been installed, which adds to concern. So when we look at council's report, sorry, we're just looking for council's report. But in council's original report, which we can't seem to find easily accessible, so my apologies. But in council's report, what it does note, and actually what I will do is stop sharing and I'll share something. Is it behind there? Yeah, apologies. Sorry, we seem to have some technical issues at the moment. No, it's upstairs. So
some council's photographs are taken from that position that should have been shaded.
Yeah, so in council's report, irrespective of that, of the technical issues, in council's report, they've taken an image from that balcony
And that window adjacent.
and the window adjacent, but in particular that balcony, and indicates that that the proposed front setback, whilst compliant, obscures views towards the city. Our assertion is that if the sun shading had been installed and the obscure glass had been installed in accordance with the approval, then we actually wouldn't have, this item would not be a matter of concern. So this is the original approval, Waverley Council approved for 105 Dover Road, DA 9420 2003.
Can you just clarify which photo in the report you're referring to?
Yeah, if you just one moment. So in council's report on page so in council's report on page 278, figure 12.
You can share it if you want.
Right, so
That's right, we've got that.
you got that? Yep. So as is evident there are no sun shadings installed, and had they been installed in accordance with the approval, then obviously that would not be an item of concern at the moment.
Yes.
So what we'd also like to address is the matter of the FSR. The proposed FSR the proposed FSR is 0.59 to 1. We'd like to draw council's attention or the panel's attention to a number of recent applications in the area which exceed the standard by over 20%. And I'd like to draw attention to 1 Victory Street, which has a proposed FSR and approved FSR of 0.66, which is 20% above the 0.55. Irrespective of that, in discussions with my client, my client is prepared to make a number of revisions, in particular, the reduction of the rear setback and the reduction of the rear setback
on both the ground floor
and the first floor in the areas highlighted in red, which would reduce, so that would bring it in line, the setbacks in line with the adjoining properties, but that would also have the added benefit of reducing the FSR to 0.53.
Can I just clarify, when you say reduce, you mean increase the setback from the rear?
Increase
the setback from the rear, sorry. Yeah.
And reduce the FSR.
Reduce the FSR. Yes.
Yeah.
Council also make a reference in their report to excessive excavation of the basement. So when we look at the basement diagram, council indicate that the excavation is 2.5 metres. That is correct in the southwestern corner, as indicated here. However, along the eastern boundary, which is along here.
Along the western boundary.
Sorry, along the western boundary, apologies. The excavation is only 1.2 metres. So that's because the site falls from east to west by 1.2 metres. So the site has a significant fall. What we are also proposing is to reduce the size of the basement by increasing or eliminating that corner, which is again highlighted in red.
And that's 35 square metres, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
So what is the total reduction that you're suggesting? About 53 square metres, is that right?
Precisely, yes. 54 square metres, yes.
And what does that make the FSR?
0.53.
Okay.
So the current increase exceedance is 18.2% or 18.2 square metres, which we'd be looking at a 6.12% variation, bringing it down to 0.53.
I don't think that, my understanding is the 35 square metres that you're proposing in the basement, that wasn't included in the FSR calculations in the first place.
No, that's correct, and it's not included in this calculation either. But
I beg your pardon. Okay, so that's not.
That's in addition. Yes. So what we are looking to reduce is on the first floor, 11 square metres at the rear, and a further 14 odd square metres on the lower level, and then a further 2.8 square metres and 3 square metres on the first floor and ground floor respectively at the front.
So the issues that led to the reasons for refusal were largely dealt with in the letter that council sent on the 13th of July. It's difficult to deal with amended plans at a panel meeting.
Well, these are not amended plans.
No, exactly. They're highlights.
They're prepared to do.
Yeah, these are areas that we're prepared to do. So what we're requesting is an opportunity with council, if the panel are in agreement, to substitute these plans for the current plans with
Are
you.
you asking for a deferral?
Yes, please. Yes.
Or I wouldn't.
And you are aware also of your other option would be to seek an 8.2 review with these plans submitted as part of that process.
Yes,
and
we
a
are.
new 4.6 clause in terms of the variation only being 6.12.
Yes, we are. We are aware that that is also an option.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else you wanted to say, Mr. Baraldo?
No, that was it at the moment. Michael?
Well, thank you very much for that explanation. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll consider this application and notify our decision on the council website accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panel.
Thank you. The next item is the number 7, the Mill Hill Community Centre at Bondi Junction. And I think there's one speaker, Mr. Robert Sabato.
Hi, Mr. Chair.
Council. Hello, are you Robert Sabato?
Rob Sabato, yep, Acting Executive Manager of Major Projects at Waverley Council. Just here to answer any questions on the section 455 to the Mill Hill Cafe on Spring Street in Bondi Junction.
Thank you. Does the panel have any questions?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
I don't have any. It looks like a very good idea. And it seems to have the support of the neighbourhood people.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you for coming along, Mr. Sabato. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll consider this application and notify our decision accordingly.
Thank you.
Now we are at 104 to 106 Bronte Road, Bondi Junction. And there are 2 speakers. The first one is Mr. Serabiani. Is he present? Mr. Serabiani. All right, and then there's Mary Jane Silver.
Yes, I'm still here.
Good on you. And we can't actually see you. We can see a big M for Mary.
I'm very bad at this.
Don't worry. Well, listen, I am too. So I can sympathise with you. What is your address, Miss
Unit
Silver?
number 4
Yeah.
at 100 Bronte Road.
100 Bronte Road.
Yeah, so literally next door.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Now you've got 3 minutes to say what you would like to say about the application.
Okay. I understand everybody needs to build, so I'm not trying to be a mean neighbour. But my windows face into the proposed site on the side of the building. So when they're going to start digging, I'm not going to have any kind of peace all day long. On top of that, once they build up, any form of sunshine is going to go completely out of my unit. I'm on the bottom. So at the moment, even though there's a building next door to me, there's a gap between us and I still get a little bit of wee sunshine. Once they build up, all of that will be gone. On top of that, there'll be, you know, I'm going to guess and estimate about 1.5 years of digging down and building 6 days a week. Same as the other developments around us. Like there's one on the corner that's almost finished. They've been going for 2.5 years. So I guess that's my only objection, that there'll be absolutely no peace for 2 years during the day, 6 days a week. Sometimes they even work 7 days a week. And on top of that, because it's going to go up 4 levels, any form of light into my unit will be gone completely.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your submission. It will certainly be taken into account.
Thank you.
There are no speakers registered on behalf of the applicant in this matter.
Excuse me, Chair. I note that we have Mr. Serabriana.
Ah, thank you. Is that Mr. Serabriani present?
Yes, I am here.
Ah, okay. We called you before, but you weren't here, but you're here now. That's the main thing. And you're from 39 Hollywood Avenue.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm of 39 Hollywood Avenue. I'm living in the property about 25 years. Adams Line, it's very Adams Line. It's a line between us, between me, my property, and proposed development. It just across the road from me, just in front of my garage.
Right.
And this lane, it's only 4 or 5 meters wide and has 0 footpath. And with this proposed garage at this property, it will be very difficult for me to use my garage. I'm a limited mobility person and I need it every day. And it obviously will make I'm 70 years old, and it obviously will make my life much more difficult. And it's narrow. It's very difficult to drive into garage without it, and new whatever number of flats with multiple cars will make my life very difficult. On top of that, we have also recently finished in progress development in the corner of Porter Street and Adams Line, and garage facing, and it will be many cars anyway over there. On top of that, I noticed that it's the only place to place machinery. It's between my house in front of my garage and proposed development. It means for something for 2 years or something close to that, I will not, from time to time, for a long time of period, I will not be able to use my garage, and I don't know how I can survive without it at all. On top of that, it's quite tall development, and we have very small backyard, but we will not have any privacy in this backyard. I noticed there are balconies, obviously windows and balconies facing Adams Lane, and it's quite high, and we don't have any privacy at all. And we with free new development just a few meters apart, I don't think is feasible, and it's overdevelopment in our area. We have no parking places apart from garages already for a long time, and it will make our life much more difficult. Okay. All neighbors.
Your time is up, Mr.
Hopefully, I make myself clear.
You have. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Okay.
No, you did very well.
Because it will affect my life for a number of years, maybe.
Right. Any questions from the members of the panel to this gentleman?
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Serabiani. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we'll consider this application and notify our decision on the council website. That brings us to 57 Francis Street, and Mr. Caravanis and Mr. Myerson, the speakers registered to speak.
Thank you,
Mr. Thank you.
Mr. Caravanis,
thank you.
you're the town planner representing
thank you.
the applicant.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am indeed representing the applicant and speaking in support of the application. We have gone through the council officer's report and we concur with it. We have looked through the conditions. We do not wish to challenge any of the conditions. We're happy with those. I have had a number of words that I was prepared to present to you, but to avoid tiring you further, given the recommendation that there are no objectors present, I'm happy to answer any questions, as indeed is our architect.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Caravanis, Mr. Myerson. Does the panel have any questions of either the consultant planner or the architectural designer?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thanks.
Ms. Morell?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for both coming along, but there are no questions from the panel. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, we will notify our decision on this matter as soon as may be possible. Thank you very much. So that brings us to 3 Rickard Avenue, Bondi Beach. And the first speaker, I think, is Alexander Kavka. Is that correct?
You're on mute, Mr. Kafka.
Sorry
There we
about
go.
that.
Ah, hello. And you're the applicant?
Yes.
Yes. Please go ahead with your submission. I should say straight away that we read with interest your recent written submission, and we all had that before us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the opportunity to present our view, and especially for reading our written comments. You've read it, so I'll just keep my comments short. Waverley Council has 2 issues, which why they're suggesting that it be rejected: streetscape, including parking, and the structural impact on the front veranda. So we believe that the proposal has a minor impact on the streetscape. Waverley Council themselves have noted that in their report that 25% of homes in the visual catchment do have off-street parking. You've seen in my comments the videos and photos where there are many semis in the area that are not identical. In particular, I wanted to discuss the photo on page number 3. This is the photo of our home before renovations began. And we started on our renovations with 2 mismatched semis. And we had a vision to create a pair of matching semis. And I have to say, I think we did a pretty good job. And at this point, it would seem to be a pity to punish us for our efforts to match the semis. Regarding parking, I understand that the council's traffic engineer does support our proposal. Nevertheless, the council asks that it be refused, sort of suggesting that there'll be a loss of 2 standard on-street car spots. So I've done the measurements of the street from the stop sign to the first driveway. And according to our calculations, we would actually be increasing the number of parking by 1 car space, albeit a small car space. You can see all the workings in our comments, and I've run the numbers both using Australian standards and numbers advised by council engineers. Finally, the structural impact on the existing front veranda. So Waverley is unsure if the proposal will impact the veranda, where we've modeled our design following an approved DA on 17 Dudley Street in May 2022, not too long ago. We've had verbal advice from an engineer that this would not impact the structure. Nevertheless, if required by council, we're prepared to accept the condition requiring a written engineer approval. Those are my comments, and thank you so much for your time. I'm here to answer any questions.
Yes, the panel have any questions of Mr. Kafka?
No.
Nothing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kafka, for that submission. Is Alison Small present? Does she wish to speak?
She was not able to make it.
Okay. I noticed she was registered as a speaker, so that's why I called her. Well, thank you very much for your submissions, both written and oral. They certainly were given proper consideration. So at the conclusion of the public meeting, which will be soon, we'll consider this application along with the other applications we have before us today, and we'll notify our decision on the council website as soon as may be possible. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Rosalina,